Hello, hello, my friends. It is Aldo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things from the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod the Dark Jedi, not gray, Dark Jedi. Looking at you, J-Ro. And I am not alone. I am joined by the Tapestry Man himself, one of my favorite orators in this space, Mr. Alden Diaz.
Hello, sir. I am the keeper of the tapestry. It's in my mind palace up here. It's so good to be here with you today. I know that you're a dark Jedi because I also know that gray Jedis are not real.
Yes.
So yeah, there's your PSA for everyone watching.
Thank you very much. I the only latitude I will ever give the concept of the gray Jedi is for a label to describe essentially only Ahsoka Tano in the current canon.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's the only I walk alone types rather than the more a gamified Legends version of I get to use whatever powers I want.
Well, if you the way I look at it is if a dark Jedi is a dark side Force user with ties to the Jedi, but they are not a Sith Lord. Like they do not identify as a Sith. That is where I would apply the term of dark Jedi, like a Kylo, like a Ventress, etc.
Yeah, even Snoke, as far
even
as
Snoke, honestly. But an unaligned light side Force user, gray Jedi.
Yeah,
that is the most you will ever get out of me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Gray Jedi apologia. But we are not talking about gray Jedi. We're actually talking about two distinctly just Jedi. We're going to be talking about the wonderful new book by Mike Chen, Star Wars Brotherhood. I am absolutely blown away by this, and I cannot wait to talk about it. And I'm very excited to talk about it with none other than Alden. But first, quick word from our sponsors. It's sundaysbloodymary.com. sundaysbloodymary.com/shop has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy. You guys know the spicy mix, spicy Caesar is my go-to. I have a jar on the way for celebration. There's also the mild and vegan mix if the spiciness and if you're not a spice lord and also would like to avoid animal product as well. They have a subscription box where you can get a reduced rate on 2 jars per month, which is quite nice. They also have their garnishes that they're pickled okra, pickled asparagus and dilly beans, as well as rim salt. They have merch with their hoodies and their shirts and the cute little tomato heart hat that I really like. I think it's very cute. So go to sundaysbloodymary.com/shop. Use code TNAP at checkout, and you get 10% off your order, and you help out your favorite nerds while you do it. One last piece of housekeeping, because I keep forgetting that this will be out before Celebration. I am going to be live during Celebration. I will not be present at the proceedings. However, I will be streaming live from this very studio all 4 days of Celebration during the convention itself, covering it live as things are happening with reactions and breaking news and things of the like. And then later in the evening to do a live recap of the day, including Friday, where most of our recap is going to be spent talking about the first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
First two.
First two, yes.
Two.
First two
Even
episodes
better.
of Obi-Wan Kenobi. No
It's
rest
nuts.
for the wicked. No
It's
rest for
nuts.
the wicked. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. And I cannot wait for Alden to be in the same room as so many of his enemies.
And supporters.
And
supporters. No, but it's gonna be exciting
like
to
that-
be there.
It's like that Trump tweet that Mark Hamill read as the Joker.
Yeah, it's 100%.
It's like Happy
that.
New Year to all, including my many enemies.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Including my many enemies. It's fantastic. Mr. J. Yeah, I'm so excited for Celebration. So excited to not just be there, but for the feeling that it sends out globally. Just like it's an electric week of everybody. Just even if you're working, even if you got something going on in your personal life, you're like, ooh, there's gonna be Star Wars in the air, and we could be able to call it a TNAP, which there's a whole roster of us that are gonna be like Jon Stewart's Daily Show reporters out there.
Yes, so many of you will be my Trevor Noahs and Jordan Kleppers and Trevor Noahs. I did not list them in the order that I like them. I'll put it that way.
You said Trevor Noah twice. That was the best part.
I said Trevor Noah twice.
Trevor Noah was the first and third.
Oh, then I was definitely saving John Oliver and forgot to say John Oliver.
John Oliver, yeah. Lewis Black.
Lewis Black. But yeah, no, I'm super excited. I'm very anxious, but in a good way. I said last night watching Bomb Bad Cast, recording this like 3:30 Friday, May 20th. I said last night during Bomb Bad Cast, at least for me, the knowing that kind of like my biggest swing at doing anything live with what will be 8 consecutive live streams in 4 days. I said like it's starting to feel like Tech Week.
Yeah, totally.
And granted, I haven't been in a play or a musical in like 4 years. And I realized last night the feeling that I have is that next week is showtime. And it is no holds bar. We're going in, and what happens.
Yeah.
All the
and
preparations relating to this.
There's that element of improv too, because we don't know how much heat they're gonna pack for certain things. Like we know the format and we know what's when, but there's a very real possibility that Thursday drops a bombshell that is big enough to take over the talking points for the entire weekend. Whether that's we find out the title of Taika Waititi's movie, or if Taika shows up, or if they drop footage from Indiana Jones 5, or like who knows what that studio showcase will be. People watching this, you might know down the road, and if you're in the future. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Hello through the world between worlds. Hello.
Yes.
Watching, not changing anything actively, of course.
Yes.
But I again, Alden, I'm so glad that we. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on for this one, is that you and I interpret Star Wars so similarly.
Mm-hmm.
And it excites me so much to talk about this book with you, because I think this is something, Star Wars Brotherhood is a story that the new canon has needed very badly. I've talked before. I think it was with Jerry and Scotty actually, talking about how, people talk about like, oh well, this doesn't, comparing Legends to canon is asinine, because you're comparing a universe, a version of this universe that had like 35 whole years to ruminate and develop extra canon material to something that has only had at this point 10 years.
Yeah. And really less, because they didn't make the change till 14. The canon change. So really 8 active ones, when Rebels kicks off. So it's definitely a not to cut off your point, but I do think it is, it is apples oranges in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and it's almost honestly it's like comparing like an orchard to an apple tree you planted the other day.
Mm-hmm.
If you even want to go that specific with it. So, and the new canon has interpreted a lot of things differently, has moved in different directions with certain story beats. One of them being that, like, in the new canon, Obi-Wan and Anakin actually feel like friends.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, this has sort of that relationship and that brotherhood of that is evident in Clone Wars, that those of us that saw Revenge of the Sith as kids felt in Ewan's performance when he's pleading and crying and like venting on the shores of Mustafar about being brothers. That's something that we always were like, oh, I'd like to see that. Then Clone Wars, we saw it. And then this is the genesis of that. I've described this, and it doesn't even do the book a service, but in the simplest terms, this is the secret pilot of the Clone Wars.
It really is. That's a phenomenal way to describe it.
This is like the other Clone Wars movie. Not that, novels and movies are fair to compare, but in terms of like, if I had to describe the experience to somebody, sell it to me on one line, I'm like, okay, the beginning of Clone Wars? Take it back even further. This is Attack of the Clones. This is 2.5 in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Wholeheartedly on the importance of this story and like the role that it fills, everything you just said. And yeah, I've always loved the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin. But if there's one issue I have with how they're depicted in Legends, it is that, they're this father and son until the story decides that no, they were actually more like brothers the whole time. Right. And in Legends, Anakin spends most of the war as a Padawan. Mm-hmm. He still spends most of his time being lectured at and talked at by Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it hard to buy "You were my brother, I loved you."
Right, because even people that are like, oh, if you're listening and you're like, I didn't read a lot of that. Just look at Tartakovsky. He doesn't get knighted. That show is well into the war. He gets knighted in that context, and then it's still very differential throughout. This sort of actually takes some of those beats and does them in the canon version, like the meeting of Asajj and different things like that, and the knighting of Anakin, which happens mere like a couple days before this book starts. It does. What's interesting about what you're saying, and what I love about what you're saying, is that this book is aware of the fact that the two men at its core don't necessarily emotionally grip onto the same family dynamic. Because this is coming off Attack of the Clones when he says, "You're the closest thing I have to a father," and as Dave Filoni says in his not infamous, in his celebrated speech from the Disney Gallery Mandalorian about the Duel of the Fates, Qui-Gon's the father Anakin needs, and that comes up a lot here, and that's part of Obi-Wan's realization at the end, is that we're both Qui-Gon's sons. Now, Anakin is stuck between this two father sort of dynamic, whereas Obi-Wan is able to really accept the change in their dynamic by the end and does see him as a brother, and he really did need a father. And that's lingering over him this entire time, whether that's through Qui-Gon, whether that's through Shmi. And it's sad because when he says, "You were my brother, Anakin, I loved you," it's not wrong, but if you had nurtured him like a father, what would be different? And that's the tragedy of so much here. That's littered throughout this book. If we had done this instead of this, what would be different?
Both of them have that internal monologue of like, damn, what if I like actually listened to what Obi-Wan was saying most of the time? And Obi-Wan going, damn, what if I was actually receptive to why Anakin was rebelling against me all the time?
Yeah. and Obi-Wan able to connect in way, because we get in Clone Wars, and this is not to say that you need to watch Clone Wars to read this book. You don't. But this
it'll be a
has
lot better.
exactly
It'll be better
like
for it.
it has those things where like you get a couple of Satine on the news moments. She's given speeches about Mandalorian neutrality, and her specter over the story. There's a few characters that aren't in the story, but very much are lingering over it. And she's one of them. Shmi's one of them. But Obi-Wan is able to say, I should probably tell the council. But at the same time, Qui-Gon, when I was having my thing with Satine, we kind of handled it differently and things worked out. So, like, maybe I just give him room to stumble. Like, he's trying to figure things out and he's trying to parent throughout until at the end, he's like, now we're brothers. I trust him. Which is, again, it's a lot of the not being on the emotional. I mean, it's extremely effective and very intentional that they start the book apart, then they do so much growing separately, and then they come back together at the end for this well-oiled machine that they are. But in that, so many things are able to creep in, whether it's mythic sort of figurative things like Anakin's interpretation of the Sun Dragon throughout, how Mil Alabeth, who I adore, plays into Anakin's journey, but also one of those characters lingering over the story is Palpatine, where he has an appearance at the beginning. He has a hard conversation with Anakin that is alluded to in Revenge of the Sith when he's like, what you told me about the Sand People. Like, that is addressed here, and we get that conversation. But then it's, Palpatine is keenly aware that the father hole is open, and he slithers into it. So
I think we should replace your ownership of the tapestry with the term father hole.
The father hole, man. Everyone's got a father hole.
Everyone has a father hole. No, I agree with you completely. And I think that, the moment where Anakin comes clean to Palpatine about his psychotic break on Tatooine, like that whole moment where, I feel like there is a moment. I not that Palpatine is someone who is a character I think is known for moments of being genuine, but I think there was a genuine moment of, oh, holy shit, they came out of Palpatine in that moment. Yeah. Not necessarily saying that he super cared, but there was a moment of, whoa, that's heavy.
I think it's and it's there's also a little bit of that glee, right? That because Palpatine probably
crazy. You're
exactly
crazy.
Palpatine was probably in his mind at this point, I probably got to drag this Clone Wars thing out for maybe a decade, and then he realizes how far gone his next apprentice really is, and he's like, well, the apprentice timetable, we're gonna wrap this bad boy up soon. He's further gone than I thought. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. There's a couple moments of Palpatine where you're not to jump around too much because I don't know, how you want to take this, if it's by character or by chronological.
No, we're just going to discuss as we go. Yeah,
sure. So with that, at the end, when Palpatine's giving his whole speech, which effectively comes down to, I don't want war, but we should kick their ass so there's no war. We're gonna do the full military integration. You get the
Operation Neimoidian Freedom.
Exactly. We're gonna, here's everybody, take your armor. Let's stand on the feet of the Capitol building and take a picture. It's just the whole thing. He has this moment where he's giving a speech, and you are in the minds of our heroes listening to the speech. And Palpatine takes a pause before he says, and the wisdom of the Jedi. And Anakin's from Anakin's point of view, he's I could hear, he could hear that Palpatine smiled before he said wisdom of the Jedi. And it's he's smiling because he's making fun of you. He's smiling because
he knows you're all about to get got.
It's a joke that only he's in on, and Masameda. It's and Slimore. It's literally just it's a stand-up bit for his posse only. it's really, really eerie to see how he was able to weasel in. I mean, his whole initiative at the beginning, like, we need to get these kids acclimated to living in war. That's why I'm sending them on supply runs and things like that. These initiates, not even Padawans, they're initiates.
And it goes a long way that like how effective the Clone War is for his end game. To galvanize the galaxy, weaken it, you get this like rally around the flagpole type thing going on. But also, the end game is to eradicate the Jedi. And having a war happen that the Jedi are involved in at its core are part of like the foot soldier infantry of this war. The amount of them that will die on the battlefield, so that when you do the big, we're going to hit them with everything we got all at once, Order 66. It's like, there's less you have to worry about. So Palpatine's like, yeah, I'm going to start sending kids in the battle. Why? That's less Jedi I have to worry about later. Like, at its core, that, I want to get them acclimated because I don't want this to go on for too long, but I think we're doing them a disservice if they aren't, like, mentally prepared. No, you're hoping those gunships get shot down. You're hoping you're preying on natural disaster.
That, and also the idea that, and maybe along the way, a couple of these kids break psychologically, and they can be, whether he was thinking about it or not, the Inquisitors, or they could be, they could service me in some other way. They could be part of what we can assume has been always looming in the background, the Exegol projects, like whatever types of things. Like Palpatine is always playing 4D chess, and that's why I've always said that the genius of him at Qui-Gon's funeral in Phantom Menace, that shot of his profile, his face, that's the one down face. One down. It starts now. I got one. And he was one of their best. And that is lingering over this. And a lot of this book is escalation, de-escalation, and all the parties involved. Like the heartbreak of this book for the galaxy is that you could see several points where maybe we could have wrapped up this Clone Wars thing. Maybe it didn't need to be what it became, because it goes from the blockade, Federation crisis of Phantom Menace, then that 10-year gap, the Separatist crisis of like, people are seceding. Maybe we should talk to them. And then now, post Geonosis, I mean, everybody is rattled. Nobody knows what's acceptable anymore. Nobody knows what the place of anyone is anymore. And it's Obi-Wan at the end that, and he says, like, we're taking rank. And Anakin goes, yeah, but the clones already defer to us. And he goes, no, but you don't understand. It's not just they defer to us now. It's that we're part of now the active strategy making of war and death and military movement. Like, this is part of the job now. It's not just an informal sort of handshake agreement. And that transition
they no longer defer to us. They answer to us now.
Yeah. And it's brutal. I mean, and you get a lot of the setup for things that we know are coming along the way, sometimes in really fun, cool ways, like Jarod, T'Pol, and Cal being there. Sad to see them in an early chapter, knowing what happens with Jarod. And other things like Cody being there. You get the meeting of Obi-Wan and Cody. It's just this clone with yellow trim on his armor. Like, oh, hello. It just feels like this is the calm before the storm.
You're absolutely right. And you and I talked right before we started about the epilogue to this book, and I'm going to reference the epilogue so that we can talk about the main thrust of the story. Because I thought the epilogue was going to be we're now in a dark, musty room with a hologram of Darth Sidious. Well done. You blew shit up, and now they all think the other one did it.
Right.
That's what I was really expecting. And I love the fact that this is the whole Cato Neimoidia crisis just kind of hangs, no pun intended, with the location. But we never it's implied it was Ventress.
Yeah.
It's implied in many ways that, she's the one going, oh, yeah, I hear all these bombs. I have a shit load of bombs here, trying to get Kitar to blow shit up. But there's never a moment where the Republic can be like, hey, look, we didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's never a moment where the Separatists are forced to say either, hey, we did it, or they at least didn't do it.
Yeah, it's totally just like I said, it's escalation. This book is just about adding to tensions. Like, it's a whodunit without ever finding out who done it. But enough, like you said, to discern that it's Ventress. But furthermore, it's this big, like, first big, besides from Geonosis, the first shot across the bow. Like, this was a neutral location. Things are crazy. Extremism is, flourishing on both sides. But the stakes become so personal, and it becomes about radicalizing one guy and how Ventress is able to push him, and he's emblematic of the entire thing of the original separatist cause of you don't care about us, which hard to argue with his personal experience and his points, but then how the separatists became a scapegoat for the Sith.
It really goes, and I have had one of my big arguments, like one of my Star Wars hot takes has always been, aside from the Separatists being everything that they are, this sock puppet army for the Sith, run mostly by corporate entities within the galaxy. If you remove the fact that it's, if you remove the hyper, like, space capitalist part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's kind of like a galactic tea party almost,
Mm-hmm.
where it's, it wants to masquerade as grassroots, but it couldn't be more astroturfed. The Separatists would be the good guys.
Yeah, Cassian Andor is the avatar of that idea.
Yeah.
Like, Cassian Andor's parents being separatists when he was a 6-year-old, and then that transitioning down into suddenly I'm rebel black ops is like, or intelligence, but intelligence that shoots people. Is Cassian, I'm gonna get your title right. A Fulcrum agent. There is that direct line of like, wait, it's like that peep show gif when they're in the Nazi uniform and he's like, are we the baddies? Like, it's that, like,
yeah I do
always done. Like, George has always flipped things on its head and been like, oh yeah, you're cheering for the Ewoks, they're the Vietnamese, the Ewoks are, America is the scout troopers and the ATSTs. And so it's interesting to see sort of like those ideas represented here in a strong way, because even Dooku, before he became a stooge of Palpatine, was bringing up these valid points, and Dooku Jedi did a great job with that, where he gives a speech in front of the Senate, and you could see where his point of view is coming from, and I feel like all of this builds, again, so grand but so small, with the conversation between husband and wife in Revenge of the Sith of, you ever think we're on the wrong side? That's when everything sort of crystallizes politically between the two of them. There's a direct line for Anakin and Padme, which is another big part of this book. There's a direct line between rolling around in the fields of Naboo and Anakin sort of describing fascism without realizing that he is, all the way to, you ever think we're on the wrong side? Like that, those conversations are so intrinsically.
And his like super like almost space McCarthyism response of like, hey, you sound like a dirty fucking commie. I mean, you sound like a separatist.
Yep. 100%
reaction to that. Like it's the super Jingo,
and that's even seated here.
System.
That's seated here in this book when Mill says, and the Republic's done bad too, and Anakin's like, I mean, come on, because he's always been that guy and this ties into one of my favorite things about the book, if not my very favorite thing, is that sort of strong, visceral defensiveness that comes out in him is because he was the slave kid that needed to believe in something. And he's, when he's in Phantom Menace and he's like, no one can kill a Jedi. Or, I'm gonna be the guy that sees them all. I'm gonna see every star system because the Jedi are so great. And the Jedi is an arm of the Republic. He loves being this guy. You see it at the end of, well, better get a haircut, Obi-Wan. People are going to be seeing a lot of us. Like, he's ready to be the poster boy of the war. He's ready to be Captain America, Captain Republic. Whereas, he's not. He doesn't want to let go of any of that because it gave him something.
The hero without fear title from Legends as well.
Oh, exactly.
Hero 100%. With no fear.
Out here like Matt Murdock. Like he really thinks that the whole galaxy is my Hell's Kitchen. Which is a big thing with the Sun Dragon, where you can see Anakin almost get to the right conclusion, and then he Anakins the shit out of it. Where it's like, I hear Qui-Gon sometimes when I meditate, but I'm not really sure if it's him. But I don't. And we, the reader, are like, it's him. It's him. Like he's definitely he's working on it. Like he's trying to break through. He's almost there. And then he's like, and then I realized I could kind of be the Sun Dragon to protect everyone. And it's like, no, but Mike Chen is such a good writer that you believe that he came to that conclusion naturally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also one of those fun things, Spencer and I love to joke about Force Heaven and the awkward conversations that must happen there.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And one of my favorites is, well, Qui-Gon's trying to figure out how to pierce the veil back into the physical world that that if you cut back over to his side, it is him living a physical version of Obi-Wan's hell of just screaming at a wall. That it is almost certainly him. And you can make it as bleak and depressing or as macabre funny as you want, that it is just Qui-Gon just going, hey, asshole!
Yeah.
He's a Sith! From the other side. Just losing his shit.
Meanwhile, meditating in the physical world. Qui-Gon for a second. I think he said something about hey. I don't know. It's totally, it's tragic. It's tragic and it's interesting. But to bring it back around to that ultimate point, Anakin does latch on to all of this, and he latches on to being the hero, and he cannot accept if that means that. If it is true that they're on the wrong side, then that means that he was for nothing, and he doesn't want to be nothing because he has been nothing. And this book, to me, my biggest praise to it and my favorite thing about it is that Jake Lloyd's Anakin and Hayden's Anakin have never felt more one, ever. This feels like that kid, but as a man. And not that they didn't in the films. And not that Matt Lanter's Anakin, which is where this is going toward the Clone Wars Anakin, is not also very much felt here, especially with the action stuff at the end of haha, landed in front of Obi-Wan, start blocking stuff. Oh God, it's Obi-Wan's lightsaber. There's some great slapsticky action, and the two of them, they're about to become that well-oiled machine that we see in the epilogue and that we see throughout all Clone Wars. As two knights, Anakin finally I think I need to stop fighting my arm. I think I finally figured out how I can adjust. I need to practice differently instead of trying to make the arm work for me. It's all there, but he's still that boy.
Anakin could apply that lesson to so much more of his life.
Yeah, if I had, maybe I need to be the one to be water. Maybe I need to change. The arm is, and that's the tragedy, is that Anakin does come to the right conclusions several times. Yeah. But he comes to more wrong ones.
I think it says a lot about Anakin's character, and I think it says a lot about Mike Chen's ability to understand Anakin, that the biggest lesson Anakin needed to learn in his life ever, the only context in which he truly grasped it was in terms of a machine.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well said. Well said. That is so true. In terms of the only thing he ever understood and the thing that he will become, which is just
the foreshadowing. I was in a grocery store listening to Brotherhood, and it was during the first Anakin Padme scene, and as I was listening to it, and it was him at the temple, the like transitions into the Padme stuff, and the way they kept talking about his arm, and like the weird mechanical nature of having this new limb, and I was like, this is such bleak, incredible foreshadowing for Darth Vader.
And Padme keep having to tell him that she doesn't mind, and it's fine, and don't worry so much about it. And
that, but like the way that he's talking about like this cumbersome thing, like it's a part of me, but it's not. Like, what is this? And like that discomfort that Mike Chen, and we're going to talk about this especially, talked about how like this is a love letter to the Revenge of the Sith novel. How this is a spiritual companion to it, and I would go so far as to say that this is not just part and parcel to the Revenge of the Sith novel. I would go so far as to say there's a lot of shared DNA between the Sith novel and the trilogy it belongs to of the Dark Lord trilogy. Labyrinth of Evil, Revenge of the Sith, Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader. I feel a sneeze coming. I want to talk through.
You fight that sneeze. You make that sneeze work for you.
Yeah. At the very beginning of Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, there's that scene that I think even has the, borrows from the Matt Stover, this is blank character. And you just get that like super in their head thing that Stover does so masterfully in the Revenge of the Sith novel. But here you have the, like, this is what it means to be Darth Vader right now. You're numb, but somehow in excruciating pain. However that works, it sucks. You can't technically see. Most of what you are seeing is via implant and your helmet. You can't really feel, but kind of. Everything is numb. You can barely move. Everything hurts, and you're dying all the time. And the way that Anakin is describing the mechanical arm, the one that he lost because of his incredible anger and hubris, is this amazing first step to the same way all of those horrible emotions that he can't get a grasp on will lead him to ruin and completely annihilate him and his body and everything about him. It's just so good. Like, and again, it's one of the beauties of telling stories in the prequel trilogy. I mean, any Star Wars story, when you knowing the grand narrative, but when you tell a story with Anakin Skywalker in it, particularly, it is like an author's it is just a blank check for whatever direction of foreshadowing and illusion you want to go for, to slowly like lay those seeds of, and this is another thing that got weaponized that helped turn him into Vader, or this is something that now you're going to think about differently when you look at Darth Vader. There's just so much there, and I think
that part of that goes to probably my favorite scene in the book. This is the first Star Wars book I think that's made me like. I've had Star Wars books that have made me sad, of course. I mean, the ones where people die, or but this is the first one that made me tear up, and I haven't teared up in a book in a long time. And it was when he's giving, and the context of this scene is very positive. It's a very positive scene, and it's even funny. It's that you're a new knight. Congratulations. Part of being the new knight is you have to go tell the initiates what you've learned. Go give them a little career day speech, which is very funny. And he goes and he does this. He has no idea what to do, and he's not connecting with these kids at all. A great foreshadowing of the Clone Wars movie several times of, I don't want a Padawan. This is stupid. I will never have one, which is hilarious. And then he finally is like, he has this breakthrough of, oh, I don't need to come up with something. I can take the lessons that I've learned from other people and give them to the kids. And so he's like, hey, have you ever heard of Representative Binks? And all the kids kind of laugh. And they're like, he walks funny. And Anakin's like, yeah, but he walks normal for a Gungan. And he's like, and he taught me about loyalty. And he taught me about friendship. And it's this whole beautiful little scene of talking about people. And then he says, there's this person named Qui-Gon Jinn. And you all might hear about him a lot sometimes. He was a great wise man and all this stuff. And he says, for one of the most important moments of my life, the pod race, Qui-Gon told me, feel, don't think, use your instincts. And I felt like I knew that already. But sometimes you just need someone to give you permission. And that's so beautiful. And I was so moved. And I teared up. But it's in this conversation with you, my friend, that I'm realizing that is also something that gets weaponized against him. Because Palpatine gives him permission for everything.
Exactly.
And he's not wrong. That is good advice. And at the end, when Mil Alabeth's like, I thought about it. I don't want to do this. Like, you think she's going to come to this big breakthrough and go get her lightsaber crystal. And she doesn't, which is great. And she becomes a healer and stays with the Jedi, but finds her own path. It's because Anakin gave her permission. So he's right. That is a good lesson to teach the children. But it's tragic for him. Because Qui-Gon gave him that permission as a 9-year-old boy, but then who was giving him permission every day since?
Exactly.
It's the constant pushes because he does that in the scene where he's like, Anakin's clearly choked up and having a hard time talking about the Sand People, and then Palpatine's like, Anakin, it was your mother. It was right. It was just. Like, he's giving him permission, and that's right up there with the arm. That's right up there with the passion stuff. The way that Obi-Wan, whenever Obi-Wan is with him and Padme's there, either by hologram or whatever, how the Force just goes crazy with all that energy. like Obi-Wan throughout this book is cursed with having to feel the horny in the Force. He's constantly like, oh God, relax. Like. And also, shout out to Mike Chen for writing one of the best new horny Star Wars moments of all time. And when Padme gives him a gift and Anakin opens it and it's new blankets. And she says, you're the pilot. Take us somewhere private. I was like, whoo-hoo! Ah!
Oh, I love when Star Wars is fucking. Oh, man. I remember I was still a dishwasher at this bar restaurant that my mom and I both worked at. She was a bartender. I was the dish bitch, and I was listening to Queen's Shadow, or Queen's Shadow, and it gets to the scene where I think it was like Sabe and the one guard, like it was like they kiss, and I'm like, yes, Star Wars book, they kiss. And then she went for his belt, and I went, I need to turn my speaker down. This just took a turn I'm not used to Star Wars books taking. And had to turn. No, I didn't have the speaker yet. I have our anthropomorphized speaker Tiffy with me. Another bit of TNAP deep lore. We named this after anime titties, and I'm not going to expound on this at all. Just let that sit there.
Love it. It's your droid. It's a droid.
Yeah, it basically is. We sometimes forget the origins of the name and then go, oh wow, I really shouldn't just be saying out loud. But regardless.
But yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, Star Wars. That's one thing, and we talked about this via text with our friends, the Goons, that canon has done a great job of making these just be human beings sometimes, and that they don't have, like, yes, we know a Jedi shall not know, etc., 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 etc. We saw the Attack of the Clones teaser poster. We know they're not supposed to have romance, but there are very differing philosophies from the High Republic era to the prequel era. Like, you have people like Jorah Mali telling Reef Silas in the High Republic era, like, the wants of the body versus the feelings of the heart and soul are not necessarily always going to coalesce. And then you have Rael Averross, Dooku's first Padawan, who's just like,
the man's name is Rael.
I'm a cowboy. and I have needs. Like he's just, yeah. His name is Rail. In terms of the great on the nose Star Wars names. Yeah, it's just
I will admit that joke was stolen from Taylor.
that's a good joke.
There was a conversation about like greater Star Wars lore, and I was something Dooku's first Padawan, Rail Averos. She went, his name's Rail. I was like, he's actually one of the Jedi who fuck. She said, I figured that out from his name. His name is Rail.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I stole
It's
that.
true.
I stole that joke. I couldn't walk away without admitting that.
It reminds me of an old Imperial Senate podcast stream from so shout out to ISP, the beginning of COVID. They said, make Star Wars names dirty. And the best one I came up with was I'm a gun deep, which is just I'm a gun deep. Rest in peace. But yeah, so anyway, Padme is great.
Yeah. Oh my God, their dynamic here. It shows. Mike Chen said I had a few, he's like I had a few conversations with E.K. Johnson. Like motherfucker, It shows.
Yeah,
it shows, and he puts his own flavor on it, but it still feels incredibly consistent.
And it shows like Padme here represents that on that spectrum of how we should be responding to this new galaxy, because the galaxy after Geonosis is a different place. That changed everything. It was no longer a simmering conflict where one assassination attempt was the biggest thing on our plate. We had open war now. It was the first appearance of the hidden army ordered by Sifo, like that no one knew about, and it changed everything. And then it got, the Grand Army of the Republic becomes codified, and it's this whole thing. So Padme is responding like you think she would, like her daughter one day would, in this way of she can't turn it off because she can't look at problems and ignore them. Like she says, like, okay, no politics, no war, no Jedi business. Let's just be newlyweds and go out. And she brings them to this food stand that serves food that is like Tatooine, sort of like these, sounds like a wrap or something.
Delicacies,
yeah. They're trying to have a good time, but they can't really, because she sees what kids need. She sees how the people are reacting, and that weighs on her. And we see that idea expounded upon with Mill Alabeth, where Mill is like, why does my heightened empathy, which is a power that we've seen certain Jedi have throughout New Canon, like Imri Kentaros in the High Republic era, it's like this. It's almost ruinous empathy if they don't know how to control it, because it's like you walk in a room and someone gets hurt and it's like, oh, like it just weighs on you. And she realizes the reason why it's hurting me so much is because I want to help. And Anakin's like, you can't ever lose that. And she's like, yeah, that's right. But are we helping? All the kids are excited to go make weapons. That's what the lightsaber is, the weapon. And it's like, she ain't wrong.
I think there's a really clever metatextual thing happening where the younglings that Mike Chen writes, I will say fairly, sound like kids who watch Star Wars.
100%.
But also sound like the loudest adults who don't understand the story either.
Yeah.
Where like all of these kids are like, I'm gonna get a lightsaber, and mine's gonna be a saber staff. I'm gonna cut the droid in half, and then I'm gonna deflect the blaster bolt. And there's like, hey, dumbass, you won't be fast enough. Yeah, well, I'll deflect the bolt at you. Fuck you. Where it's like all of these kids are like so like hyper fixated on this, colorful, high adventure violence, and when you're a kid, lightsaber does go burr, and I get it. I think it's emblematic of all of the things that we know, everything we know the Jedi have become that is not great.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point of the High Republic is, the way that the Jedi are these, swashbucklers, not by choice, but that like they truly feel like heroes. Mm-hmm. And we haven't seen a whole lot of younglings in the High Republic era, but we haven't. I would be surprised if there was a youngling who could get away with talking about how much violence they cannot wait to enact. And I think that it's interesting that, again, it's reflective of the kids who are here because lightsaber go burr, and may grow up to have some type of deep philosophical epiphany about Star Wars. But the same people who claim to have some type of philosophical epiphany who also sound like these children, I think is a very fun little meta text going on there.
I agree. I mean, especially because some of the best Star Wars material has that metatextual aura about it in terms of knowing what we know. And we know that this is the beginning of the Clone Wars, and we know that we're about to see the Jedi at their maybe coolness height, not ideological or functioning height, which would be the High Republic.
It's the zenith of their power. Like
Yeah.
I've almost every single like important Jedi in this era is a powerhouse.
Yep,
but
all of them. They all have their
most
hero moments. Like we're about to watch 7 seasons in real life of a show about what Anakin's talking about at the end. Gonna be seeing a lot of us like, this armor, it doesn't really fit well, but we'll make it work. We're about to have good times. Like this war will be over soon. We're gonna kick some ass, take some names, and move on. And it's only Obi-Wan that's like, I don't feel right. And other people, I'm sure, as well. We get a little bit of insight from Yoda throughout this book. We get some insights from Mace throughout this book. We get moments of Anakin being like, I'm talking to the kids and I look and Mace is standing at the door to the classroom and I'm like,
whenever they had that line about like Mace watching, I couldn't help but see like the meme of Sam Jackson, like whatever movie it is where he's in like where he's in the undershirt with
yes,
like the crazy hair with like the stairs motherfuckingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meme. Like that is immediately what I saw, is that face on Mace just staring motherfuckingly.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so good about capturing the changing times and we talked a little bit about Mill, but the other POV new character, Asajj is a POV character, but the new character Roog Cornum, who is Kitar's mentor, who's former Special Forces, now a guard for the Nemoidians. Her point of view is so interesting because she almost has an understanding of the Clone Wars already. Like she also wants it to be de-escalated, but she's also like has the cynical point of view where she's like, yeah, well, I've killed people that deserved it. I've killed people that didn't deserve it. This is where we're headed. I'm prepared for that. I'm prepared to take the L's. I'm prepared. Like she doesn't take the help of Anakin and Obi-Wan when she could have, until to the epilogue when it just comes. But it's an interesting sort of perspective to have somebody that's already been forged in a war to sort of convey what that's all about, because you don't really have that in Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. Like there are characters obviously that have been through conflict, be they Jedi, be they soldiers like Captain Panaka, Captain Typho, those types of people, but there isn't somebody that's like, this is what you are getting into. You get a little bit of that in Clone Wars, but it's already kicked off. So to have that voice here to tell Obi-Wan, I trust you, I like you, but there is no de-escalation here. We might be able to quell this situation, but we're in it. Is very interesting.
It is very interesting, and I like Roog a lot. I think there's I think Roog is interesting as a character for so many reasons. One of them is, and I make jokes about space racism a lot, but holy shit, is this book like really about space racism?
Yeah,
and the way that not to trivialize a real world issue, but in kind of that same way, where like racism against anybody of Asian descent kicked up during lockdown because you had sacks of shit saying shit like China virus.
Yep.
And anybody ignorant enough to go, oh, well, I'm just going to monolithize, there's a new word, an entire continent into China virus bullshit. And now there are people in danger. I think there's something not dissimilar from that going on with the way the Neimoidians are treated and talked about. And I think it says a lot that, like, even Anakin is party to bigotry. He's a bigot. You know, he has some really kind of fucked up things to say. I watched Alex Damon's video about, like, you know, like 60 details, whatever. And granted, Qui-Gon says these Trade Federation types are cowards. Like, he's referring to the actual corrupt jackasses. But, like, it's a trope. Like, it is like an intergalactic
people. It's like asking your average, like, Bible Belt doofus if you say Al-Qaeda, and they assume that the entire nation's Al-Qaeda. Like, they assume that Neimoidian equals Trade Federation, that they are all these Jeff Bezos types, you know, which is how I always describe when people ask me, why Phantom Menace? Why does this movie spend so much time on taxes? Why does it spend so much time on this and that? It's like, well, imagine if Jeff Bezos tomorrow got 2 seats in Congress that he could fill however he wanted with Amazon execs. It's like, that's what George was cautioning us against, was the idea of something like that happening. And the galaxy sees them that way. It knows them as the ruthless calculus. They just care about money. There's a little bit of Jewish anti-Semitism mixed in there with some anti-Asian sentiment mixed in there. Mike Chen, an Asian man, is writing with the knowledge that the Neimoidians do have offensive accents, and they do have, like, he's an Asian writer taking that alien species back and saying, let's parse it out.
That is one of my favorite things about this book. And again, white guy.
Yeah. I mean, Kitar's whole breakdown, where he talks about his family and their art, and being spat on and made fun of, and shunned,
slurs,
put on, being graffitied on everything.
Again, you know, these are one of those, you know, I have no real point of reference, nor have I experienced anything like this, but the moment the book took that turn into, well, this is what they think about all us Neimoidians, with the knowledge of, you know, Mike Chen's heritage and everything, I went, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, big fucking swing here.
It is. I mean, this is
nets.
100%.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, this guy is through Rug, Kitar, and I will say various other, I'll group them together as Politicians Trade Federation. He's having a conversation between all these angles of a people, which is such an immigrant son type thing, in that we have to burden with, like, my experience is obviously very different. I'm white passing. I am Puerto Rican 100% on both sides, and my grandma was the last person to come from Puerto Rico. But in all families of diaspora and just different ideas, like, there is that kicking around of the ideas that people don't agree. Like, he doesn't understand why Kitar, because of his family history, cannot understand why Rug is going soft, kind of. But Rug is much older and has been through more hell than Kitar, who's a young guy inheriting trauma. And neither of them are wrong. They're just sort of butting heads at this impasse. And you have Anakin there, who's and you can understand Anakin being this slave child that was liberated, that came up, and then his first formative experiences were under the boot of the Trade Federation when he was 9 years old. And then he finds this person that treats him like a human who he loves, and Padme, and they try to kill her. Like, you also understand his perspective and how he became the way he is.
There's so much Anakin loses directly or indirectly at the hands of the Trade Federation. There is the you know, like you said, you know, like, he's this kid, you know, like, he's infatuated with Padme on sight, And like the whole crux of the Return to Naboo is how do we get her to either subjugate or die? And then his father is killed by the Sith agent who's aiding the Trade Federation. You know, there's so much. We're like, yeah, I get why you don't like the Trade Federation. In a similar way to like, I get why Ketar doesn't fuck with the Galactic Republic. Only difference is Ketar goes, fuck the Republic.
Yep.
And goes, fuck the Jedi. Like, fuck the institutions. Anakin goes like, I don't like any Neimoidian. Bomb another city almost. Like, he doesn't ever say that out loud. But like, there's a part of him that's like, oh yeah, Neimoidia, let's go help him.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, he totally is like in the same. It's not the same type of thing, but in the same way that I always remind people when talking about Finn, you have to. Well, what is the character? Why? What is the character doing? When people say that Finn's arc in Force Awakens is the same as Last Jedi because he commits twice, it's like no, he doesn't commit twice. He shows up to Starkiller Base for Rey. Anakin is not committing to the I want to help Kato Neimoidia and solve the whodunit. He doesn't give a shit about the whodunit. He's showing up to help Obi-Wan. That's why he goes. Obi-Wan has to be the one that's like, hi, thanks for coming to help me. Really glad to see you. There's a bigger picture here. And it's able to really just paint a really rich and full picture of all of those themes. And I'm so glad that we live in a Star Wars age now where, and I'm not going to pretend, of course, neither of us would, that it's in such some great place. Like there's still leaps and bounds to go in terms of representation, in terms of dissecting these ideas. But we're finally in a place with the inner mythology where people are asking those questions. We have had the Tusken Revolution of really understanding what the Tuskens are about in the live action material. We've had small moments like in Last Shot with the Gungan that tells Han, like, we don't all talk like that. When Han's like, Misa, and the Gungan's like, let me stop you right there. No need. We don't talk like that everywhere. You've had moments now with Kato Neimoidia. You've had these different things that have been able to expand people out. I mean, even bigger examples that are more singular character, like Marin, showing a different side of the Dathomirian Night Sisters of their pain, and that they aren't just dark witches that are evil. They're, we do dark magic, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Like, it's like I was raised in this. It's traumatic. Like, so everyone's point of view nowadays is being fleshed out.
And I love that so much. And again, the way that Mike Chen absolutely, like, again, like there's parts of Phantom Menace, you know, we were just talking about it on Movie Club, and, you know, the double-edged sword of having the Bomb Bad Boys on to talk about Phantom Menace is that it turns into a Phantom Menace love fest, and a lot of criticism didn't come up, but like there is some, I think, well-meaning but deeply insensitive shit in the Phantom Menace that it arrived not great and has only continued to get worse with every passing year. And the only way I can describe how Mike Chen handled everything with the Neimoidians is as follows.
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking good.
That motherfucker don't miss, man.
He's good.
In the heat of battle, he don't miss.
No.
In the heat of controversy, he don't miss.
Thank you, Snoop.
Thank you, Snoop and Rappaport. We appreciate you. That clip is so good. And it's true. In the heat of battle and controversy. Which are both relevant here.
Yeah, absolutely are. But yeah, and I love Obi-Wan's characterization here. This book is really good. It soared to so high in my, like, I've never tiered or done a ranking for Star Wars books. But this cracks top 10, if not top 5 for me.
It's up there. It's up there immediately. I mean, it's essential reading for fans of either of these characters and for fans of Clone Wars. I mean, and for fans of Attack of the Clones. Like, this book embraces, and Revenge of the Sith, but because it's closer in proximity to clones, it embraces so much. I mean, you talk about Obi-Wan. Not only do we get Obi-Wan and Dexter Jettster together again, who's great in the book, he has Obi-Wan is still, you could tell he's still coming down from that like investigative spree. All of his point of view chapters are like, I'm looking at Anakin through the reflection of this other thing, and he has an awkward smile, and I'm looking from up here, and I see the two of them hugged, but it was kind of a touchy hug. Like he's doing this detective stuff throughout the entire book. He can't turn it off.
I love that with Obi-Wan. I love the internal monologue of Anakin. We said this in the group chat we're in. I really hope this gets a comic for two reasons, both of them being the same thing. I need art of Anakin in his engineer outfit because one of my favorite aesthetics in Star Wars is a Jedi wearing not Jedi clothes doing Jedi shit.
Yeah.
I love Jedi and leather jackets type shit. It's like that one piece of art where it's like Luke on Coruscant looking very Blade Runner with his lightsaber drawn. I don't know if you know what picture I'm talking about or not.
Yeah, I do.
But like that, but Anakin.
No, 100%. I mean, this
Please,
is
I'm begging you, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, Del Rey, Mike Chen, whomever, Kathy.
Yeah.
I'm going to appeal directly to my boss, Kathleen.
Let's do it. Yeah, no, it has so much in it that I would love to see visualized. I mean, the trial of Obi-Wan, everything from Obi-Wan Kenobi pulling the Dark Knight Joker of I want to be captured. Also known as the Loki, I want to be captured. Also known as the Silva and Skyfall, I want to be captured. Christopher Nolan started a trend where every villain for like 5 years after Dark Knight wanted to be captured. But Obi-Wan pulls that move. He has this trial. He has this grand speech. There's this grand escape. Like it's so cinematic. And in terms of why it would work as a comic, why it would work theoretically as like animation, whatever. There's lots of people out there that support the idea of adapting books to animation, and I love that idea. I think that would be great.
I'm absolutely one of those people.
Yeah, you do a Lost Stars 3-part animated miniseries or whatever you want to do, little animated movies, whatever. This book has one of my favorite things. It's not easily attainable. It's not something that if a book doesn't have it, I don't hold it against it because it is so hard. But when it does have it, it sings, and that it's when a book moves like Star Wars. It's very hard to do because Star Wars is designed as a film serial. It has the classic Flash Gordon wipes. It has the in medias res. We're in it, and we go. And Attack of the Clones does that. Rise of Skywalker definitely does that. Like the slowest that a Star Wars movie gets is New Hope, and that movie is still rollicking the entire time. And it's very hard to do that. Last Shot does that. Light of the Jedi does that. This one does it for sure. I would say, can't say much about it, but I'll say Shadow of the Sith does that. That's all I can say.
Sizzle.
I didn't say if it was bad or good, and I'm still embargo safe. But yeah, it's just it's a difficult thing to capture, and this book has short chapters constantly bouncing around the perspectives to help it. It's constantly moving in a forward direction. It constantly has something. That's not to say, again, it's not to say that books like the Thrawn trilogy or like Alphabet Squadron that are definitely more methodical aren't Star Wars. Of course they are, but it's a different flavor.
It is a different flavor. And I will say another thing that I loved, and again, it's very brief, but I loved Anakin and Ventress's duel in the tunnel.
Yeah. Let me ask
That
you,
was
as a longtime Star Wars fan and a longtime Anakin fan, did you think she was going to give him the scar on the face?
No. I would have been disappointed if she did. Because
really?
I would have thrown another cannon temper tantrum. Like that, which is my other complaint, which is so nitpicky. And I told you about this before. Because I'm sorry, he gets the thing on Yavin 4. Show me him getting his face cut or tell the story where he gets his face cut. I'll accept it. But it happens on Yavin 4. Like
right now.
Clone Wars,
until proven otherwise. Yeah.
There is one little like stupid like canon hang up that really, really confuses me.
I think I solved it, but go ahead.
Who knows if and when Dooku is a Lord? Because the Clone Wars episode of season 6, where they're on Obadiah, Obi-Wan and Anakin seemingly have a moment, pardon my hiccups, where they go, "Oh my God, Count Dooku's Darth Tyrannus."
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Okay. Oh, this feels so much realer now going in to fight him. But like during the incredible scene, and it's still one of my, if not my favorite moments in the book, when Dooku and Obi-Wan have this verbal duel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that ends in Obi-Wan like using the nuclear option of "You trusted Qui-Gon Jinn," which is just
so
like
good.
Where it's the only way he can force Dooku onto his back foot, you know, because
Dooku won't. Dooku does respect Qui-Gon. Like that's the cool thing about Dooku is that Dooku in his mind still thinks that he buys what he's selling in Attack of the Clones. He does. Yes, he's too far gone. Yes, he is a Sith, but it has that rule of two-ish attitude where he thinks that he can be the A guy and that he can use the Sith power to idealize things. So it was the perfect play, you know, like after Obi-Wan has that moment with him in Attack of the Clones, this is the next natural step of that. Okay. You said you said that Qui-Gon would join you. You meant that? Well, now I'm going to turn that on you.
Yeah. And I absolutely think, especially because Qui-Gon is dead, he thinks Qui-Gon would join him. I agree with you. I think he wholeheartedly believes that, and he's absolutely wrong as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that scene. But the way that like everybody's internal monologue when referring to Dooku is to call attention to his Sithhood. And like I was so confused. Like, and again, it's not story breaking. It's not whatever. This is the kind of shit that is only an issue if you care too much about this shit, which I do.
Yeah.
But I'm very confused as to when people are supposed to know that Count Dooku is a Sith Lord.
Now, I haven't reread the scene, but I will say that from my memory, Obi-Wan's internal monologue is about what Dooku told him in Attack of the Clones, which is that there is a Sith Lord controlling the Republic, controlling everything, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Obi-Wan has that moment where he's like, it can't just be a Sith Lord. It can't just be one Sith Lord or whatever. Like, could one Sith Lord really be doing this? I think that Obi-Wan is talking to Dooku and saying Sith to Sith in his mind. But I do think that he's referring to the ambiguous Sith Lord that Dooku brought up and not necessarily Dooku himself. But I might need to reread the scene.
I respectfully think you're incorrect. He does like refer in his mind to Dooku as a Sith.
Yeah, which I guess is sort of one of those things where it's like, you're right. Like, it's us people that care too much about it. I wonder if it's like, well, he's a card-carrying red saber guy who's clearly in league with a Sith. Are we calling him that as shorthand? It's
that was gonna be how I hand wave it in my own mind.
Right. It's like, because again, like Asajj, like sometimes people talk about Sith and they say Asajj Ventress, and I'm not gonna be that. I'm actually, she was really a dark side apprentice of a Sith Lord, but not really a Sith Lord herself. Like, we're not gonna do that all the time. That's a big thing I've had with people that push back on. In Rise of Skywalker, Zori has that line where she says, "You left us to go join the Resistance." And a lot of people are like, J.J. Abrams not paying attention to the canon because he was a New Republic starfighter, not a Resistance. It's like, you think Zori gives a shit? You think Zori knows the difference? Like, cops are cops in her mind, I'm sure. Like,
that's fair, but one day I think you and I are going to end up having an argument about the Rise of Skywalker. because last night, which I don't. What were we recording last night? It was when we were recording the Versus series, and I made a joke about what happens when Reddit writes movies, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I hope Alden gets to see this one day.
I'm gonna stab someone. We'll do that. We'll have that conversation. But yeah, I do think that it's just like characters in the story don't make the same distinctions that we do, and that's sort of like I'm gonna say something about Shadow of the Sith, and I'm gonna say it in the most non-spoilery way that I can. It's no secret that Ochi of Bestoon is one of the main characters of that book. There is a moment when Ochi of Bestoon, in a flashback, is hunting Jedi, because we know he used to do that. So far, I haven't said anything that's embargo or spoilery. Be very careful with my words. He sees 2 Jedi that we know, and we know, as nerds, as fans, what their ranks are at the time he sees them. Ochi refers to them as master and apprentice. But in my mind, I'm like, no, they should be master and knight, if not master and master by this point. So then it's like you as a fan are sort of left with the, oh, is this a canon problem? Or can we just write it away as maybe him as an assassin?
A perspective thing, yeah.
Right, like him as an assassin, he might know a little bit of background on them. Or he might have been tracking them. Or maybe him as an assassin has been tracking them and heard Jedi 1 refer to Jedi 2 as master formally. Because Anakin still calls Obi-Wan master throughout the Clone Wars. So it's like maybe this person referred to their former master as master just because, and Ochi is making now the educated guess that, okay, well, that must be the apprentice. It's those kinds of conversations where it's like we know the Wikipedia of it all, but we also need to understand like what they know. So it's like maybe Obi-Wan's calling him Sith shorthand. Maybe Zori doesn't know the difference between the New Republic and the Resistance. Maybe it's all that stuff.
And again, and it's fun whenever everybody can like agree to the terms of we are now entering the nitpicking segment of the evening.
100%. We know it's nitpicking. It's when people take it too seriously and don't know that it's nitpicking and they think it matters. That's fun.
Yeah. And again, you know, like I'm one of the. Oops, I almost took out the microphone too. They're stretching. I I'm one of the people who like was sincerely annoyed with the Bad Batch and Epilogue's blue lightsaber. You know,
yeah.
Did it put a bad taste in my mouth for the entire show? No.
Yeah, because we have imaginations.
Yeah,
we have imaginations, and we could be like, maybe she was dual wielding at the end of the war. Maybe she was using a loner. Maybe we can do that sort of maybeing.
And again, so much of that scene has changed, but the heart of it stays the same. Yeah. Caleb watches Depa die. He blames himself. She sacrificed. Like the heart of it, the important shit stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you're allowed to be upset with the butt, but just remember in the grand scheme of things, that butt does not really matter that much.
Yeah. It's about it's the Han and Greedo of it all. Like Pablo Hidalgo once said, if you're talking about Han and Greedo and who shot first, this is what's important to the canon. Han and Greedo both went into Chalmun's Cantina that day. Blasters went off. Han lived. Greedo died. Reports vary. Like that's what it is in the galaxy. That's so like my whole thing with the Caleb, Doom, Kanan stuff is like I love that 12-issue series. I love it so much. Issues 2 through 12 are still unchanged. And it might just be within the fable of Star Wars. There's some gray area about what collar looked like and about who was there. That type of stuff. Within the fable of Star Wars and within the fantasy of it all, the tapestry drink is sort of that wiggle room to be able to play. David Lynch calls it room to dream. Which is, I think, so essential to what this is. And so sometimes there are those things that won't line up. Like Book of Boba Fett. And Luke offers Grogu Yoda's lightsaber, but didn't Masameda present the lightsaber when they took over the Jedi Temple and made it the Imperial Palace. And it's like, yeah, but also there was this source book that showed his hut and there was a lightsaber in it. And that's canon too. So you ever think that the guy who's closer to 1,000 years old than he is, he's not over 900 when he dies, or 900 when he dies, that he might have packed two in those centuries of life? It's pretty possible. So
yeah. Like I said, it is the only frustration I have with this book is give me don't call him the Sith yet. I don't know. But again, who gives a shit. But yeah, we've been kind of swerving around it. Alden, final thoughts, letter grade?
This man's gonna make me grade something. I'm kidding. I will say, if I had to give it a grade, I would give it an A. I would give it an A plus plus plus. I would give it an Orabesh A. I don't know what the Orabesh characters are called. I think that this book is so strong. It's so key. It's a prequel lover's dream. There's passion all over it. There's so much that we didn't even discuss that I want people to read it and find for themselves. If I had the time, and we don't because we live in the content storm of never ending everything. I mean, we have 4 Star Wars shows coming out this year. It's May and it hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll never have time to do what I'm about to say, but I would love to read this book, binge Clone Wars, and read the Matthew Stover Revenge, and just get that entire experience. Cause that feels like a holy run. This is great. Everybody should read it.
Everybody should. I agree with you completely. I think, again, I've made it no secret. Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith is my definitive version, at least the first half, definitive version of Revenge of the Sith. It is this book is meant to parallel it in so many ways. It directly quotes it a couple times. It recanonizes the Sun Dragon myth. It's amazing, and I can't recommend it enough. I concur with Alden's grade as well. Alden, before we bring it home, where can the lovely people find you and all that you do?
You can find me at that Alden Diaz, THATALDENDIAZ, Twitter and Instagram, talking about all manner of things that I'm into, be that Star Wars, be it wrestling, the rest of film, Dua Lipa, all that good stuff. You can find me on so much Dua Lipa. You can find me on my Star Wars podcast, Ahach-To Radio, AHCHTO Radio, where there's the main show doing one-on-one interviews with people around the Star Wars space. Jarod's been on the show before in a great episode, which you should all check out. And then we have some other people from the Star Wars space, be there content creators, people that work for Lucasfilm, authors. Mike Chen is going to be on the show. It's just a matter of scheduling. I don't know if you know, it's crazy time for Star Wars right now. Very hard to lock people down. But then we also have
going on.
So much going on.
A couple weeks.
It's gonna be nuts. One and Done Film Club is another show that I do, and popping up around other different projects and stuff. You can find me at Star Wars Celebration if you are going to be attending. This episode comes out during Celebration, you said?
No, this will be coming out. I'm posting it like right after we're done. So.
Oh, okay. Well, Star Wars Celebration. Awesome. Star Wars Celebration. Find me on a Saturday panel talking about Latinx representation in Star Wars with Triad of the Force. To me, Goose from Triad and Katrina Dennis are going to be up there on the podcast stage. And then just around the show. Just if you see me, stop me. Unless you don't like me, then move along.
I don't know how you couldn't like this, man. Alden's one of my favorite people in this space. I think I pride myself on public speaking, but Alden, in terms of being an orator, is the best of us. And
thank you, my friend.
I enjoy sharing airtime with you. Thank you. Speaking of Celebration, I will not be in attendance, but I will be covering it live from this very studio, bringing you guys reactions, coverage, in the news, breaking stuff, all of that. Like I said, I will be live during the convention itself each day, and then in the evening, I'll be doing live recap shows from the day's news as well. Alden will be showing up. So many of our friends, our murderers row of a roster of Star Wars people will be joining me to discuss the goings on from the convention floor. So yeah, please tune in for all of that. And you guys can find me on Dark Jedi 2552 on Twitter and Instagram. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon.
Give me a dollar.
Speaking of our patrons,
Makes me laugh every time. Every time I see it, I forget about it, and then it just brings me joy the next time.
that makes me happy. Are you familiar with Oh Hello?
Oh yeah, the Melanian Kroll show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spencer made a joke. I think it was when we finally did the Versus Series tournament. I don't remember when he said it, but that we need to do that. It needs to be 2 clips that everybody in the mezzanine in the balcony, we do this show for you, but we will be making eye contact solely with the orchestra. That it should be like, give me $1, and then that. And when I get the time, I'm going to make that happen. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Nick Johnson. And Paco, or as he's going by these days, you get 5% off your order if you use code TNAP at saveinfowars.com. That's TNAP at saveinfowars.com for 5% off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
So good.
It is. It's marvelous. I should have known the night I decided to do that live stream that Alex Jones was going to become a part of the comical DNA of the Nerd Academy. And sometimes I regret it. Other times I don't. Speaking of the Patreon, on the $5 tier, the Versus Series is back. Today at the $5 tier, Kylo Ren versus Cal Kestis, episode 1 of season 3 of the KNR Versus Series, and episode 2, which will be coming out in June, early June, if the stars align the way we need them to, is going to be Revenge of the Sith Anakin versus Mandalorian season 2 Ahsoka. So we got a cool matchup lined up for that one, and we have July's matchup decided, but we're not going to announce that until we get to Anakin via Ahsoka. So stay tuned for all of that. Again, $5 a month gets you the audio commentaries and the Versus Series. $10 a month, you get early access to special episodes. You get a shout out in every episode, like Nick, like Paco, and you also get Movie Club as early as I can get it to you before it has to go out. So please consider checking out our Patreon. Also, if you'd like to support the show, you can click on the student store link and check out our TeePublic for some TNAP merch.
Sure, tpublic.com.
Go check that out. Travis and I made the decision. We were clipping the night we watched Spectacular. I took a picture of the TV to get the timestamp. But yeah, with all of that said, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please stop by for our celebration coverage. I cannot wait for next week. It is going to be hell on wheels in the best of ways. Thank you again, Alden. Go read or listen to Star Wars Brotherhood. I cannot recommend it enough. We are honored that you have joined us, and may the Force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!